Quita Alfred, costume designer for Women Talking. Were you familiar with the book by Miriam Taves?
I was not familiar with that work of Miriam's, but I was definitely familiar with her work. She's one of my favorite authors. And sort of all my worlds collided when I got the call for this movie because I've always loved Miriam's work. We grew up very close to each other, and a lot of the things in her work resonate with me because we're very similar ages as well. So, no, I was not familiar with the book, and then I was shocked by it, and then I was immersed in it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming you read the book after.
I did, yeah.
Yes.
Within minutes, I think the hour after I got the call, Sarah's call. Yeah, I did.
Mm-hmm. So after reading it, what kind of inspiration did you take from it?
Well, it was horrifying, for one thing. The story was horrifying to me. And I think because, as I said, I grew up close to where Miriam Taves grew up in southern Manitoba. And seeing Mennonite women in plain dress is a completely everyday occurrence there. I grew up with Mennonite people in every aspect of my life. Winnipeg everybody's from everywhere. My teachers, my babysitters, my friends, my teammates are Mennonite people, were when I was younger. And I thought I was quite familiar with Mennonite culture. Not so much specifically religiously, but definitely with culture. And then to read a story like that and delve further into the more fundamental more fundamental versions of Mennonite culture was fascinating for me. And I fell hard down a research rabbit hole for months and months and months, finding out how little I really knew, actually. And the biggest part, I think, that informed my work on this picture was the confinement of these very simple, seemingly simple clothes and the reasons behind them. And, a lot of people think, oh, it's a little house on the prairie. It's very simple. It's maybe those are period dresses. I've heard a few people refer to the film as a period film.
It takes place in 2010. Recent.
Yeah. So a lot of people are unfamiliar with the fact that people still live like that. Very many people still live like that.
Well, I do think it's something about I think the overall aesthetic and also your designs where the movie takes place in 2010, but the look evokes something older because of the situation there.
Yeah, I think it does. But as I said, that we were very, very true to form. And those are authentic. It's hard for us as modern secular women in particular to think of, why would a farm woman want to spend a day in a polyester dress with long sleeves and no pockets? That was a huge revelation.
I love pocket dresses. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, not allowed pockets because, and I found out as I delved a little deeper, it was so that there were no place for idle hands, essentially. Imagine having 10 children, being a farm wife, no electricity, no modern conveniences, and you don't even have a place to put your keys. And in fact, as we delve deeper into the research, you probably wouldn't actually have been given the keys. So it was really, really subtle things like that informed most of the work that we did. And as I said, things that I thought I knew about a culture that was familiar to me, so many more layers were added to that.
Well, yeah. So you mentioned the dresses are polyester. So what was it like?
Are they ever?
Accruing the polyester and making so many dresses.
That was quite an adventure. The whole movie was an adventure in every respect. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. And using the example of finding the fabrics, those are real Mennonite fabrics bought from real Mennonite storekeepers, shopkeepers, and Mennonite women on farms. I had two amazing cultural consultants, Esther Jansen and Marianne Hildebrand, who in southern Manitoba first of all, allowed me to access people who knew how to build the sort of things that we were replicating and knew how to source fabrics. And both of them were absolutely, I couldn't have done it without them. They introduced me to so many wonderful people, and I made lifelong friends from the search, or during the search for all of this authenticity. And it made everything easier. They were so kind and so generous to help me and to tell me and to share with me what their lives were like, what their processes were like. It was fantastic. But yeah, a lot of polyester. I think that's probably a better question for the actors. If you ever get a chance to ask the actors, you will get a range of reactions about the polyester. In fact, when I really first started shop, and our amazing producer, Lynn Lucibello, allowed me to start my research while I was still in Winnipeg, which is kind of the heartland in Canada for Mennonite culture. And then they moved farther south into Central and South America from there. That's a whole other story that I won't get into now, because that's another rabbit hole. But Lynn allowed me to start early, essentially, and to source and research and do all of that work in Manitoba, where I had the people at my doorstep, essentially. You can't swing a cat in my neighborhood in Winnipeg and not hit a Friesen or a Lowen or a Penner. So I had all of this help. So I sourced in southern Manitoba, and then I came to Toronto, where the film was made, and had my other Esther, my contact here, helped me source in southwestern Ontario. So all of the stuff we bought is the real deal. In fact, in Winnipeg, there are specific stores in the city, but of course in the rural places too, that sell nothing but floral print polyester and plaid polyester blends for shirts and black denim for overalls. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 square feet of it. Nothing but.
That's incredible.
It was pretty.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the other thing is like these dresses are, it's basically like they're uniform and they're very similar in shape and size. So how do you go about expressing the characters' personalities through their clothing when you are handicapped by one outfit essentially, and also their circumstances? And like the dresses are different with different patterns. I think Salome's is purple with flowers and Marique's is green. So how did you land on the colors and the patterns for each of them?
Well, that was a really great process that I got to go through with Sarah, of course, but also with the actors. Each of us had our conversations about character and then added in details. But I started by dividing the families for my own edification. I divided the Friesens and the Lowens. And I'm trying to remember which. The Friesens were, it's hard to tell the players without a program, that's for sure, in this movie, because there's so many faces. But I divided them into temperament, essentially. The Friesens I had in my mind, and eventually it followed through too, in more logical, precise, regimented, but not in a harsh way, a logical sort of group of colors, brighter, purer colors. And then the Lowens, I had more in the natural patterns and shapes and colors, and they were murkier is the word I'm after. Marique's dress, for example, I don't know if you'll notice, and it's all quite subliminal. The actors and I, we knew what we were doing, and hopefully, and I've had some feedback saying that people instinctively kind of figured it out, what was going on. The Lowen ladies were a little bit more flowy and murky and troubled and indistinct. And then the Scarface's family, the Jan's family, because they were, their beliefs and were so regimented. I went into the darker colors because it's more traditional, in actual fact, the blacks and the dark reds for matrons, but also I wanted a sense of immovability, rust and dried blood and just
The crunchy.
inability to break free from what they knew. So as I said, I presented those. It was really 3, and the men are even more limited. But so I didn't work as much with the color palettes for the men because they had their, like you said, uniform of the plaid shirt and the overalls. But within the 3 groups that I created, I worked individually with Sarah, with the actors, and also with Sarah, so that she knew where I was going, and so that we could very, very subtly differentiate between the characters and between the temperaments as well.
Well, lastly, speaking of Sarah, she mentioned that they walked into a Starbucks one day and the barista loved their dresses. So what is your reaction to that?
I think I remember that, hearing about that. There was a Starbucks across from the studio, and I think on a mask break, they went across the street. Funnily enough, I sent a couple of pictures from very current Vogue issues to Sarah saying, okay, did we start this or did they start? What's going on here? Because it really was in a lot of the high-end fashion magazines at the time, or just previous to when we started, the prairie look, I guess people would have called it, or folk, or, you know, it wasn't quite bohemian, but there were lots of fashion magazine pictures. So yeah, I do remember hearing that people thought, oh, those are kind of great.
You're such a trendsetter.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Well,
take it now.
It was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. We'll see you back in a little bit.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.